So we've been looking at trig equations and solving them. We're going to look at our last type of trig equations, which is where like we have stuff on the inside. But the first part of it still works very, very similarly. Okay, so remember our first goal when solving a trig equation is to do what?
Get the trig by itself.
Yep, and so I still want to do that here, so what would we need to do? Subtract 3 and
Divide by 3.
So we get
-1.
-1. Then remember, once our trig equation or our trig function is by itself, we then want to refer back to the unit circle as long as we get a value that's on the unit circle. So -1 is one of our options for tangent on our unit circle. So tangent's not on our unit circle, but what do we use in order to find it from our unit circle?
Sine and cosine.
Yeah, because remember tangent is sine over cosine. So if we need sine over cosine to be 1, so we're just gonna ignore the negative for a minute. What does that mean sine and cosine have to be? Equal to each other. And where are they equal to each other? Pi over 4. In the middle. Okay. Except in my first quadrant, tangent is going to be positive. And we need it specifically to be negative. So which two quadrants is tangent negative in?
Second and fourth.
Yep. So I need the angles that have 4s in the bottom, but in my second and third.
7 pi over 4. 3 pi over 4.
And what? 3 pi over 4. Okay. So those are our answers. The only difference this time is that normally when we use the unit circle, right, whatever our function is goes away, and I'm just left with x. My function is still going to go away, but now I'm left with whatever's on the inside. So then basically we just have to add one extra step. So how do I undo dividing by 2? I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. So on our first one, I get x equals, and then now how many times does 2 go into 4? 2. So I end up with a pi over 2. And then on my second one, again, how many times does 2 go into 4? 2, so I end up with a 7 pi over 2 instead. So like I said, the first part of it, isolating and then using our unit circle, is exactly what we've been doing. It's just we add one more step at the end to undo whatever it is on the inside there. Now this one is a little bit different. Can remind me, what does it mean, or what do we have to put on there if I want all the solutions?
Plus 2 and pi.
Yeah, that's the one where we have to add the plus 2 and pi at the end. Okay. But other than that, it's going to work the same way. So this time we need to get our cosine by itself first. So what do we want to do? Now, a lot of people want to try and divide by 3 as well. Okay. But that 3 is inside of the cosine. So I can't undo that until we undo our cosine. Are we okay with that? Alright. Which now our cosine is by itself. So now is when we use our unit circle, because 1/2 is on our unit circle. So remind me, on our unit circle, cosine is our what value?
X.
Our x values. And what is the x value for our first angle? The other one, greater than 3 over 2, and then 1/2 is our second one. Remember, in the middle, That's where they're equal to each other, so those are our square roots of 2 over 2. Then our last angle, the 1/2 is first. Okay, what is that last angle? Pi over 3. Okay. Which is my first quadrant. And then where else is cosine positive? The fourth quadrant. So what angle in our fourth quadrant has a 3 in the bottom? Pi over 3. So again, those are my options. So I have 3t equals pi over 3. And again, remember, we want all the solutions this time, so that's why I'm putting the plus 2 in pi. And this time, how do we solve for that t? Whoa. Well, we need to divide everything by 3, yes? Which includes that plus 2 in pi. Which also makes sense because we get this 2 pi because the period of sine and cosine is 2 pi, yes? Which of our variables in our equation affects the period? So our A is the the amplitude. Then remember our B value is what gives us our period. And this time, my B value is 3. So we would have 2 pi divided by 3, which is why we end up needing to divide by that 3 as well. Or you can just think about it, this is a part of my equation, so I have to divide all of the things by 3. So I get t equals, be careful on this one. What is pi over 3 divided by 3? Yes. Because remember, dividing by 3 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/3. Which is why I get a pi over 9. What do we think a really common answer right there would be? Like a round answer. Yeah, or just a pi, right? Like they'd be like, 3 and 3, they divide out, so I just have pi. But be careful, this 3 is on the bottom, and I'm dividing by that, so that is also in the bottom. So that's why we get pi over 9. And then we have plus 2 and pi over 3. So that's our first answer. And then our second one works very similarly. And that's our second one. What questions do we have there? Yes. No. Maybe. Alright, so that's what we have. We are finally finished with 5.3.